Dear students, in this session, I will be dealing with the 27th page of our module. In the previous classes, we had discussed about the articles of faith, then the different objections regarding the author and the reader. When the author and the reader is cut off from a literary work of art, what happens? What all are the apprehensions, etc., etc. In this session, that is the second paragraph onwards, in page number 27, Cleanth Brooks clearly states us what is the formalistic literary criticism. I read, I have stated these objections as sharply as I can, because I am sympathetic with the state of mind which is prone to voice them. He is talking about the objections in the mind of some people about cutting off the author and the reader from a work of art. Man's experience is indeed a seamless garment, no part of which can be separated from the rest. Yet, if we urge this fact of inseparability against the drawing of distinctions, then there is no point in talking about criticism at all. It's a very important sentence. Underline that sentence. If we urge this fact of inseparability against the drawing of distinctions, then there is no point in talking about criticism at all. We have to understand that such separations are needed to work out literary criticism in a work of literature. He continues, I am assuming that distinctions are necessary and useful and indeed inevitable. So we must make some distinctions, some differences. Traditionally, we were focusing about the author related studies of literature or the reader related studies of literature. But now we have to stop that. We have to make a distinction. And making that distinction is an inevitable aspect for literary criticism, to take literary criticism to a new level. And that new level that we are going to explain or we are going to discuss is the formalistic paradigm of literary criticism. The next paragraph. The formalist critic knows as well as anyone that poems and plays and novels are written by men, that they do not somehow happen, and that they are written as expressions of particular personalities and are written from all sorts of motives, for money, from a desire to express oneself, for the sake of a cause, etc. Moreover, the formalistic critic knows as well as anyone that literary works are merely potential until they are read. That is, that they are recreated in the minds of actual readers who vary enormously in their capabilities, their interests, their prejudices, their ideas. So he explains something about it. So the formalist critics know, as everyone knows, the inseparability the traditional people they have voiced out. Inseparability of the author and the reader. He is underlining it in these two statements. Okay, it's a very simple statement. I will explain it again. See, the formalist critic knows as well as anyone that poems and plays and novels are written by men. Many authors are writing all these works. That they do not somehow happen. Poems and novels, they do not just happen without the assistance or without any association with men. Okay, they are written by people, men of letters, and that they are written as expressions of particular personalities. If I am writing a work, definitely my personality will be reflected in that work. That also we know. Cleanth says, as a formalist critic. As everyone I know, this is the case. And are written from all sorts of motifs. So if an author is writing a work of art, he or she has a motive. Motives like, he explains, for money, from a desire to express oneself, for the sake of a cause, etc. So these all things, that is written by men, it is written as expressions of personalities, and also it is written with a motive. All these 3 points are related with the author. Okay, so I know this is the fact. In the next line, he is talking about the reader, the role of the reader. Moreover, the formalist critic knows as well as anyone that literary works are merely potential until they are read. Take page number 35. In glossary, potential. What is the meaning of the word potential given here? Possible as opposed to actual. So here, potential means, you see, a poem gets meaning by the reading of people. Okay, otherwise there is a general meaning attached to that poem. If I and you are reading a poem, I and you generate different meanings out of that poem. So, the more the readers, the more meanings we get. The more meanings are generated out of a poem. So, reading is a sort of a creative work generating more and more interpretations and meanings to a work of art. Suppose we cut that reader from a work of art, then what will be the situation of that work? It will be mere potential. Okay, it has a general meaning, that's all. That is what here Brooks is referring to. I know that. He says, the formalist critic knows as well as anyone that literary works are merely potential until they are read. That is, that they are recreated in the minds of actual readers who vary enormously in their capabilities. So, the same poem, when written by an undergraduate student, a postgraduate student, a research scholar, a doctor of philosophy, it differs because the range and the intellectual capacities of all these people, they vary. And in accordance with the meanings generated out of such readings also will vary. So that is what he is talking about. Recreated in the minds of actual readers who vary enormously in their capabilities, their interests, their prejudices, and their ideas. But I know these facts, I know about the author and also the reader. But, underline, it's a very important sentence. The formalist critic is concerned primarily with the work itself. Underline that sentence. The formalist critic is concerned primarily with the work itself. Speculation on the mental processes of the author takes the critic away from the work into biography and psychology. So this is the problem faced by the formalist critics. According to the formalist critics, if we think and talk and discuss more about the author and its connection with the work of art, what will happen? It takes away the critic away from the work into biography and psychology of the author. So we are not giving due importance to the work, we are more concentrating on the author, his psychology and also his biography. There is no reason, of course, why he should not turn away into biography and psychology. Such explorations are very much worth making, but they should not be confused with an account of the work. So the formalists, they are not completely denying the biography or the psychology of the author, but they say that the importance of the work that has to be emphasized above the author. Such studies describe the process of composition. So the formalist studies, they concentrate more on the composition of the text, how the text is getting evolved, not the structure of the thing composed, and they may be performed quite as validly for the poor work as for the good one. So they may be validly performed for any kind of expression, non-literary as well as literary. So such studies describe the process of composition, not the structure of the thing composed. So if we are keeping on thinking about the author, his biography and his psychology, we are only thinking about what? The composition, the process of composition, how the work is getting composed. Instead, according to the formalist critics, we have to think about the structure of the thing composed. Underline, structure of the thing composed. And they may be performed quite as validly for the poor work as for the good one. Whether it is a good work or a poor work, the structure of the work, it has to be analyzed, and the formalists, they are focusing on that. Now I am moving on to the next page, and I will be stopping in the middle of the first paragraph. On the other hand, exploration of the various readings. So we have just talked about the problems faced by the formalists if we concentrate more on the author. Now, on the other hand, exploration of the various readings. Now we are going to talk about readings, which the work has received, also takes the critic away from the work into psychology and the history of taste. Underline, this is the problem. If we concentrate more on the reader, what will happen? It takes the critic away from the work, the original work, into psychology and the history of taste. The various imports of a given work may well be worth studying. I.A. Richards has put us all in his debt by demonstrating what different experiences may be derived from the same poem by an apparently homogeneous group of readers. And the scholars have pointed out all along how different Shakespeare appeared to an 18th century as compared to a 19th century audience, or how sharply divergent are the estimates of John Donne's lyrics from historical period to historical period. But such work, valuable and necessary as it may be, is to be distinguished from a criticism of the work itself. So till here I will explain. So there is a reference to an author, I.A. Richards. Who is I.A. Richards? Again, you can go to the bottom of the page and look at point number 7, note number 7. Ivor Armstrong Richards, 1893 to 1979, was a literary critic who much influenced the new critical method of close reading. He is the author of Principles of Literary Criticism and Practical Criticism. So who was I.A. Richards? I.A. Richards was a literary critic who influenced the new critics. And there is a very famous work by I.A. Richards, and that is Principles of Literary Criticism and Practical Criticism. So here there is a reference to him. So coming to our text, the various imports of a given work may well be worth studying. I.A. Richards has put us all in his debt by demonstrating what different experiences may be derived from the same poem by an apparently homogeneous group of readers. So, I.A. Richards is a person who had done a close reading of the text. Close reading in the sense concentrating more on the work and also what is the impact of that work in that particular contemporary world. So he has explained in his works the differences that we can see about the meaning that is derived in the reading of an author at different historical periods. For example, Shakespeare. The way Shakespeare is read and understood is very different from the way the 17th century people read and the way the 21st century people we read. It is very different. So a homogeneous people meaning a people of a particular nature. So if we associate ourselves as belonging to the 21st century readers, we are a homogeneous group. How we read Shakespeare and how we derive interpretations of Shakespeare will be different from how a 19th century group of readers they make about Shakespeare. So I.A. Richards has pointed out these differences. So that is what is told about. And the scholars have pointed out all along how different Shakespeare appeared to an 18th century as compared to a 19th century audience. And here there is a reference to John Donne, a very famous poet. And who is John Donne? Again, there is a note for you, note number 8. John Donne, 1573 to 1631. He was an intriguing metaphysical poet, a master of English poetry who profoundly influenced the modernist poets. So, who is John Donne? John Donne, he is a metaphysical poet. Okay, he belonged to the 16th and the early 17th centuries. And he was an influence on the modernist poets. Poems like The Canonization, Valediction Forbidding Mourning, Death Be Not Proud, Flee, and Batter My Heart have stood the test of time. So John Donne's poetry, still we study John Donne's poetry. John Donne has written his poems during the 16th and the early 17th centuries, but even in the 21st century we have John Donne's poems to study, as we have Shakespeare also to study. So they have these all authors and these all texts, they are classical texts. What do we mean by classical texts? Those who have stood the test of time. Whether it be in the 15th or in the 16th or in the 19th or in the 21st, these all texts have their own relevances. Okay, so that is here. coming to our text, how sharply divergent are the estimates of John Donne's lyrics from historical period to historical period. But such work, valuable and necessary as it may be, is to be distinguished from a criticism of the work itself. So here Brooks says that the reading is very important. The readers are also very important, because from period to period, the interpretations or the meanings derived upon a text differs according to the differences in the readers. I understand that. But even then, we have to cut the reader from the text. That distinction, that difference we have to make from the traditional understanding of the text or traditional literary criticism. So with this, I end this session. We will be continuing our text in the coming sessions. Thank you.